What is something that a lot of civil attorneys don't know about judgment enforcement, but should know about judgment enforcement?
I've got two big ones for you. Gold nuggets. If nothing else you can get from this this interview and my presence here is one: if you have a judgment against someone and they transfer an asset, you don't have to file another lawsuit. You don't have to file a fraudulent transfer action. You can just levy on the asset transfer.
You could just levy on. So instead of having to file a separate judgment enforcement complaint, what is the process of levying on the action? Is it through the sheriff?
Yeah. So let's just say the debtor owns a house. It's in his name. You levy on it. You go through the process. You sell the house. Scenario two, before you're able to get a hold of the debtor, he transfers the asset, the house, to his 17-year-old son. Rather than filing a fraudulent transfer action to unwind that transfer, you simply levy on the house in the name of the son, and you unwind the transfer via motion through the levy process.
Wow, so that short circuits a lot of unneeded civil procedure, I guess.
I mean, lawsuits, discovery, a skill. The debtor's number one defense is delay. And if you have a multimillionaire defendant, $300,000 buys a lot of delay.
There must still be some due process that the son would have in that scenario. Could he file objections? How could he still delay that process of levying on the fraudulently transferred asset?
Anytime you levy on an asset, the debtor can make a claim of exemption that this property shouldn't be levied upon, and any third parties can make a third-party claim of ownership. And so the son would have to come forward, and the burden of proof is on the son to prove that he owns the property and that it was purchased for value, that he paid the real value to his father for that property.
Whereas if the creditor had filed an independent collection action, the creditor would have the burden of proof.
Exactly right.
Well, that's very interesting, very, very useful nugget of information. Let's see. And one other, to kind of bookend that question about something that civil attorneys should know. What is something that civil attorneys definitely should not try to do on their own without a judgment enforcement specialist?
I think it's like anything. It depends on the practitioner. If you're used to getting out of your comfort zone, doing a lot of research, you can do just about anything. A good practice guide, a couple calls to your friend Joseph Chora, and away you go. The only thing I would absolutely suggest that you outsource is the asset investigation. The second and most important step is to make sure the guy you're chasing or the gal you're chasing has assets that you can eventually take and convert into money.
Yeah. Well, what about after the attorney has made a couple of calls for advice to his good friend Joseph Chora, and then kind of run into a brick wall? What is the brick wall that attorneys often run into and decide, you know what, this is too much research. I haven't spent this much time in the Rudder Guide since I was a first-year associate. Joseph, can you take over X? What is X?
The one that scares most attorneys is levying upon a house, because everyone you talk to says it can't be done. It's never done. It's so complicated. It doesn't work. To find someone to tell you it's easy peasy, 1, 2, 3, I'll probably be the only person who tells you that.
Still, even during the pandemic, with some of the measures that courts have put into place in terms of the pandemic.
Yeah, we took several houses during the pandemic. The hard part isn't taking the house. The hard part is getting the people out of the house.
Yeah.
Which, if you do it right, you sell the house to a third party. You've got the money. You don't care if the people get out of the house or not.
Wow. Okay. Tim, remind me never to cross this guy.
You have just listened to the California Appellate Podcast. a discussion of timely trial tips and the latest cases and news coming from the California Court of Appeal and the California Supreme Court. For more information about the cases discussed in today's episode, our hosts, and other episodes, visit the California Appellate Law Podcast website at calpodcast.com. That's calpodcast.com. Thanks to Jonathan Caro for our intro music. Thank you for listening, and please join us again.